A late season trade brings back an old face and a new face to the Tampa Bay Lightning. We'll talk Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde's futures with the team on today's Locked On Lightning.
You're Locked On Lightning, your daily podcast on the Tampa Bay Lightning, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Lightning your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Tampa Bay Lightning podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we want to begin with a shout out to our everydayers, all of you who tune into every single show, every single day. We love you. We appreciate the support you give us week in, week out. I'm Nick Morgan, and I am joined by the Mike Evans, to my Baker Mayfield, Greg Steven. Greg.
What a fantastic greeting. Thank you very much for that one. Gotta love me some Baker and some Mike Evans. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone had a great and safe long weekend, and excited to talk Lightning.
Yeah, it's been a hot minute, hasn't it? We took Monday off for Labor Day, and then we had a massive scheduling snafu yesterday between two very busy work schedules. So here we are. We do have some good news coming up, though, about the future of the show at the end of this one, so stay tuned for that. First, though, want to mention today's episode brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. All right, Greg, on today's show, we are talking about two new faces to the Tampa Bay Lightning that came on at the end of the year. One of them is an old face. We're talking Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde. Both came over for I would say, a pretty hefty deadline deal that sent Mikey Eyssimont and a couple of first-round picks up to Seattle. It was a big talker around the NHL when it happened. We're actually going to be talking about the trade itself coming up here in a little bit and what our thoughts are now compared to what they were when it actually happened. But first, let's break these players down, Greg, and let's start with Oliver Bjorkstrand, because this was a guy who's been bounced around the NHL for a little bit, can never quite re-find that magic that he had with the Columbus Blue Jackets all those years. But then I thought he actually did really well after that trade, coming over here to the Tampa Bay Lightning sort of at the deadline. 18 games with the Lightning, had 9 points, 5 goals, 4 assists, which I think is actually pretty solid for somebody who's in your middle six, kind of exactly what you want in terms of depth scoring. What did you think about Bjorkstrand's play after he got to the Lightning?
I actually thought it was fantastic. I thought he looked like he was great out there with the Lightning, and I'm looking forward to this coming season, actually, because of how great he did look. It is really a shame that he was injured in the postseason.
Yes.
Because like you said, he had 9 points in 18 games with a brand new team, and he's not playing, he's not on the first line or anything, right, either. So that's pretty impressive. His shooting percentage was the highest in his career. I know that's a short window of games, but still was high. And he was +3. Like, I just, nothing bad about his game. And to say he was +3, he was -1 with the Kraken before he was traded this season. And the season before that, he was -20 with the Kraken. So he was already positive with the Bolts. That shows a good thing, especially when the Bolts defense looked awful at the end of the year, right? So he was just doing his part, and I thought he was great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I would have loved to see him in the playoffs had it not just been for, that injury he picked up towards the end of the year, which it appears that he's going to be a full go for the start of camp. But yeah, I actually credit John Cooper a little bit for finally figuring out how to use Oliver Bjorkstrand the right way. You look at him in Columbus, and he was, of course, the guy, opposite Artemi Panarin, was kind of like the main number one playmaker for a while. He goes to Seattle, gets drafted. They try to kind of recreate that magic with him a little bit. And then he gets to Tampa, and John Cooper takes him and goes, you know what? You don't have to be the guy here. we already have 5 or 6 the guys here.
Yeah.
You just need to come in, be in the middle 6 and just give us some really good depth scoring when you're on the ice. His ice time's not huge, and it doesn't need to be. I think he's averaged 14, 15 minutes a game, towards the end of last year. And I think that's exactly what his role is just come in for the second power play, come in the middle 6, get some good shifts. You're probably going to get a lot of offensive zone starts. You just need to be a guy that helps convert some of those chances. And hey, if they can get anywhere in the range from, let's say, 40 to 50 points out of Oliver Bjorkstrand this year, that's a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely agree. And look, he scored 5 goals in 18 games with the Lightning, and they already have all those guys. So like you said, they're not putting this expectation on him that is too much to bear, and if a guy's going to score a goal every 3 games and put up a point every 2 games, that's awesome. And he's on your third line. Hell yeah. Let's take him.
Yeah. So we've been doing questions going into next year for each of our players going into next season. What's your question for Bjorkstrand as it relates to his play next year?
I'm going to do it again, Nick. I'm going to say health, just because of how the season ended for him. It is unfortunate. And when you do take a long-term injury like that, not everyone can bounce back the way they were. So that is definitely a primary concern for me for Bjorkstrand. I think my other concern will be finding just like a steady line mate. I think they have him playing with Gourde right now still, but assuming that keeps up, who's going to be that mainstay on the third slot there? Those are the 2 main ones I think I have.
Yeah, I would say it's him and Nick Paul maybe anchoring.
Yeah, I think it's Nick too.
The other thing is I do wonder if there's space for him to maybe surpass Gage and be that second line winger alongside Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli.
Yeah, no, that's actually something I was also going to bring up. I think he's very capable of moving to the second line. And let me just shift us right into the predictions while we're here, because I want to say he's going to have a career year.
There we go. Yeah.
I don't think he's going to put up like 100 points, but I mean, looking at his stats, I think 59 is his highest total in a season.
59 with the Kraken.
Yeah.
The year before last.
I think. Yeah, or a year before last. Yeah. So, yeah, I want to put him somewhere like 65, 70. I think that's where he's going to land.
Okay. I'll take that from a second, third line guy.
Yeah.
My thought is just, what's his future going to look like after this year? 1 year left on his contract. He's an unrestricted free agent. This is that $5.4 million a year deal that he signed with, I think, with the Blue Jackets. I think this was before he moved to the Kraken. It's year 5 of that deal. Is there a space for him on the Lightning after this? And it to me, it's going to kind of depend on 2 things. What's the cap situation look like across the NHL? Number 2, can he take a team-friendly deal? I don't think Oliver Bjorkstrand's a $5.4 million player anymore by any means. That doesn't mean he's bad. It just means I don't think his contract's that high. So I think it's going to be a little less this time around. And number 3 is just what you do with the other players on the team. I mean, next year, Ryan McDonough is going to be in the UFA. JJ Moser is going to need a new contract. So it's interesting to see what the Lightning do with him in terms of his future here, because he is someone, especially if he looks as good at the beginning of the year as he did with the team last year, I'd say this is a guy that you would try to see if you can lock in for another couple years and really serve as an anchor for that middle 6 wing spot.
Yeah, I think you're onto something when you say, it depends on how he looks in the beginning, because it really is going to come down to how he plays this year. I just don't see anything around that. It's just, if he plays poorly, he's either getting dealt or he's signed for a low amount of money. He's already 30 years old, right? So
yeah,
it's not like he's signing this 8-year deal. I don't think.
But
you never know, right?
Well, it is the last summer that you can sign 8-year deals, Greg.
Yeah.
So why not use that on Oliver Bjorkstrand?
But anyway, I do I do think he will perform well. I do think the Lightning will have space for him. The issue is, we've discussed this over and over, the Lightning do have somewhat of an aging roster. So to re-sign a 30-year-old might not be in their best interest. I think it just kind of depends on how he performs here.
I would say the other part of that equation on that note too is just how good Gage Gonsalves looks, how good Morgan Geekie looks too.
I mean, that's Hagel 26, right? I think.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would say a couple of those younger players, how they do this year, will also be a big factor in Bjorkstrand's future.
Certainly.
Let's talk about the other end of that trade. The old friend Yanni Gourde comes back to the Lightning after a wonderful expansion journey in Seattle. How did he do towards the end of last year, and what's his future moving forward? We're going to talk about that coming up in just 1 second. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money is around. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off organizing your finances, Monarch does it for you. Monarch does all the heavy lifting. You can link your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. So don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. Again, that's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNHL. Visit Monarch Money today. Welcome back. Nick Morgan alongside Greg Stephen on this edition of Locked on Lightning. And Greg, let's talk about our old friend Yanni Gourde. Comes in as the other part of that big trade at the deadline, centers right into the bottom six. And unlike Oliver Bjorkstrand, where we're talking about contract, talking about future, Yanni Gourde's going to stay around a while. Just signed a new big contract with the Lightning this offseason.
Yeah. Look, I love Yanni Gourde. He is my guy. He was my first jersey once they won the cup. I love him. He is fantastic. When he left, I was devastated. I was happy to see him come back. I didn't think it was the right move at the time, but he changed my mind very quickly. I mean, he put up 14 points in 21 games. With the Kraken, he put up 17 points in 36 games, and he was arguably more of the guy there, right? So,
yeah.
Wow, he clearly feels at home in Tampa, I would say. He was +4. Lowest shooting percentage, though, which is so funny because, you can see him come here and think, wow, I got Cooch, I got Point, I got Gensel. I don't need to shoot the puck. I need to go forecheck, be that aggressive guy, bring my energy. That's what they want from me. And I feel like he knew his role instantly, and he fit right back into where he was, and he excelled.
Yeah. It's sort of a different role for him now than it was maybe when he first started coming up with the Lightning a few years ago, right? I mean, he had that big 64-point season in 2018, and I think a lot of people were like, ooh, what gem did we just find? Like, what gem did Stevie Yzerman pull out of the undrafted scrap heap? Never quite matched those totals, but was always a big source of offense, kind of always around the high 30s. Just below 50. I think his career high was 48 after that 64-point season. So, nothing to sneeze at, but he comes to the Lightning and, he's not that source of depth scoring anymore. And he is exactly what you mentioned. It's like, hey, you're a fast guy. You're an aggressive guy. You don't mind getting your nose dirty on some of these plays. Go be that guy. And I think for Yanni Gourde, having the ability to just go out there and provide good play without necessarily having to provide good stats to go along with it, I think that's taken some of the pressure off of him. And I think that's going to take some pressure off of him entering this year.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And the other thing is, he is now that guy that these young guys can learn from. And I love that. And we talked about this, I think, in the last week at some point. One of the key attributes, in my opinion, for a core player is that they need to have the passion that is almost so overwhelming it's visible to the fan base, right? And when I say that, I mean guys like Hagel. You can see it in his game. You can see it in Kucherov's game. And sometimes Kucherov's is negative, right? But you can still see it. And Yanni is that guy. And that's why I think he is so superb with the Lightning, because he brings that element to the team, and he's older too. So it is something that some of these young guys can see. They're like, wow, this guy, all he does is want to win. He goes out there and every shift he's skating 100 miles an hour, slamming bodies. And I need to start doing this. This is how you win games. So I actually love that he's there, whether he puts up 14 points in 21 games or not. It's just that experience he has that I want the younger guys to get from him is what I want.
And a big sort of, I guess, hitching point to that is the bottom line in terms of forwards has kind of been a pain point the past couple of years, I would say, for the Lightning. And it wasn't until it became a pain point that I think people started realizing, okay, that's not just a throwaway line. Like, you actually kind of have to have a role for that.
Yeah.
And they had a role when they won their cups, a couple of years ago. So I think having Yanni Gourde as the anchor to that bottom line is going to provide some stability there. And I think now John Cooper can use that bottom line a little bit more strategically. It's not just go out there and don't screw up for 8 minutes a night. Now you have Yanni Gourde, who's, I would say, just as good defensively as he's ever been, with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I think his defense has gotten, it was already pretty good. It's gotten, I think, immensely better over the past couple of years. I think now that you have him anchoring that line, you can use that fourth line as kind of a defensive stop a little bit. If you need a big defensive zone, face-off win, Gourde's your guy. If it's late in the game, that's a line that can give you some quality minutes. And I think because there's such, I guess, some question marks over, who are some going to be the other people rotating into that line. Is Mitchell Chaffee the guy? Are the Lightning maybe going to try to bring up some people from Syracuse like Jack Finley to play that role? I think Yanni Gourde being the 82-game guy at center there, it's going to let you rotate some guys in and out. It's going to let you try a few different things depending on your matchup, and you're not going to lose a step. He's going to be that anchor.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing is, when Hagel or Cirelli is unavailable on the PK, he's a guy you just throw right there. He might not provide that same youth to the PK, but he has the energy and the knowledge to play it well. So he's another guy for the special teams I think they can look to. And like you said, having him on the fourth is great. But I'm going to just toss you one more thing, Nick.
Okay.
57 games last season. I'm going to bring up the exact same topic I've brought up recently for the last few guys. Like, can he just stay healthy? And he has historically played most of the games every season until this past season. So, he's aging. So we'll see. I'm hoping he stays healthy. He is 33 years old. So we'll see.
Which, as a guy who's turning 37 next year, hearing it's like, oh, he's 33, he may be on his last legs.
Yeah.
Strikes too close to home. Also, I feel like we should just go through the Lightning roster one at a time and just be like, can they stay healthy?
Yeah, let's do that on one of the segments this week.
Let's do that. Let's like rate their health meter on its scale.
Yeah. Durability meter.
Yeah. So yeah, Greg, and I'm with you. And I do actually think he did spend a decent amount of time on the penalty kill last year. And I actually think he sort of ended the season as like that second penalty killing guy. Or that, the guy on the second penalty kill unit alongside Nick Paul. Yeah, I'm predicting a good Yanni Gourde year. I don't think we're ever going to see him get back to, early career, big explosive depth scorer Yanni Gourde. Mm-hmm. But I think give me 30 points a year from him. And I think the Lightning are getting exactly what they need.
I was just going to say the same thing. 30 points is my guess.
Yeah. So awesome for that. We have Yanni Gourde. We have Oliver Bjorkstrand. What we don't have, Greg, are our next 2 first-round picks, and I guess Mike Easemont. What do we think of the hard words to say today? What do we think of the deadline deal that brought both of those players here? And do we think it might be a gamble for the Lightning's future? We're going to talk about that in just 1 second. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL season, almost here, folks. We just wrapped up our last couple of NFL fantasy drafts yesterday, so we're ready to go. Hey, FanDuel wants to make sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love FanDuel because it fits me exactly the way I like to bet. I can do player props, I can build my own same-game parlay, or one of my favorite things to do, I can jump in the action live as the action unfolds. Live bets throughout the game. It makes every game more exciting, whether I'm watching my team or just keeping an eye on my fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little bit more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. Again, FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to Locked On Lightning. Nick Morgan alongside Greg Stephen. Greg, we've been talking about Oliver Bjorkstrand and Yanni Gourde, looking ahead to their futures for next year. But let's look a little bit into the past, shall we? The reason that they're back on the team for this year, a big trade as the season ended. The Lightning get Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand from the Seattle Kraken. They lose their next 2 first-round picks, their 2026 and their 2027. Both are top 10 protected. And if it falls into the top 10, we've got bigger problems to talk about. And Mikey Easemont also going outside Tampa. Greg, this was a big talker, and I think a lot of people around the league called it a big risk when this happened. What were your thoughts on the trade then, and have they shifted any now that we're headed into this new season?
Okay. I was a huge Mikey Easemont fan. So I think at the time I was a little stung by giving him away. I'm just going to keep saying the same thing, right? Like, Mikey Easemont was that guy who was the energy ball and passionate. Like,
I thought you were about to say, can Mikey Easemont stay healthy?
No. But he was that guy, right? Like, he was that passionate guy, and he was young and he was hungry. You can see he put in everything on all the shifts. Like, I love Mikey. As far as trade value, at the time, I actually made a post on my old account, and I graded it a B-. This is the day of the trade, so that was my initial feeling, B-. I would stand by that. I think it's hard to say. I think until we see another season at a Bjorkstrand, how it will truly fare. But I think trading a pretty valuable Mikey Easemont, 2 firsts and a second, for a 30-year-old and a 33-year-old is a little interesting, especially to a team that has a core that is in their 30s. I don't know. It's an interesting decision. I think ultimately the goal was to give the team the boost they need to win last season. So if you want to look at it that way, that was a fail, right? But you could also look at it like it did do its job. Like, I think Yanni looked great out there. I think he did give them a boost. And then Bjorkstrand just got hurt, right? So it is really hard to say right now. I think if Bjorkstrand puts up 60-plus points this season, it was worth it.
It's interesting because it's sort of 2 older players for the price of 1 player.
Yeah.
You get Yanni Gourde, you give sort of what you're getting from Mikey Easemont, which was a lot of grit in that bottom pair. You shore up that bottom pair, which I think was a big thing that JBB wanted to do. I think he really looked at that bottom 6 as a pain point last year. And that shorted up. And you get Oliver Bjorkstrand, who's another big depth of depth scoring, which was also a pain point because you look past Hagel and Cirelli, and there was a gap kind of towards the next tier of players. So you get it from that end. I think for me, we talked about this last week, or was it 2 weeks ago? I don't know. We talked about this some point this summer about trading the first round picks. And you and I are on the same page. I don't mind trading a first round pick because, you're probably going to get better value from a player right now than you will 5 years down the road from somebody drafted 26th or 27th or whatever the pick winds up being. But you and I said the same thing. As long as they use those picks smart, and I think that's sort of the X factor here. Are we looking at the end of not this season, but next season, and not having that first round pick and saying, okay, this was maybe a dumb decision? That's my only caveat is the value of those two guys going to play a major role in keeping that cup window at 2027. That to me is where the risk comes in a little bit. I don't mind a first round pick, but 2 first round picks for this deal in which you're already losing a pretty talented young player. That to me is, I think, my main concern surrounding this trade. That was kind of how I felt at the time. That's how I feel now.
Yeah, exactly. I think the one thing is that the Lightning are not getting a top 5 pick by 2027, right? Like, I just,
let's knock on wood.
Sure. I just think it's extremely unlikely. So to me, yeah, if we want to cough up 2 firsts, that's fine. I think it's just for what? And I just don't think this was that for me. If this was a single elite defenseman, I would give them another one.
Yeah.
So, I think I was fine with them giving the second in 2025. Obviously, I don't care about that pick. And even the 2026 first is fine. Like you said, though, the 2027, like, is it that valuable? I don't know. Especially when you're giving them Mikey too. It's just, you're giving them a younger version of Yanni, basically, and then 2 firsts and a second for old Yanni, and then like Bjorkstrand, basically. So I don't know. Kind of a weird trade, honestly.
I feel like this year is going to sort of find that trade. Like, if they 100%. Both play as good as they did at the end of last year, then cool. That's I would say worth it. Hey, if the Tampa Bay Lightning march to the conference finals, Stanley Cup finals sometime in the next 2 years, which I think they're more than capable of, and Bjorkstrand and Gourde play a good role, then cool. No harm, no foul. I'm with you though. I think JBB is at the point where he's got to really hone in on what trading futures looks like. And this is actually a conversation that we're going to have as the season gets closer, because I do think it's one of the biggest storylines headed into next year, is just when the futures conversation comes into play a little bit more. I'm with you. I think if you're trading first round draft picks, I think if you're maybe leveraging some of your top prospects into a key player down the road, you have to be really smart about what you're using it for. And I'm with you. I'm not sure 2 middle 6 forwards or a bottom 6-4, however you want to categorize them, are worth 2 first round picks. I'm with you. I look at that defense and I say, after Hedman, after Moser, where's the future of this defense when Victor Hedman retires, when Ryan McDonagh retires? That's what I would rather use some of this future capital on, because I think right now that's the biggest question mark on the Tampa Bay Lightning.
Yeah, and look, I think some of the young guys show promise, but none of them have shown us their Hedman, right? So
yeah,
we're still looking.
Yeah, that to me is going to be the biggest X factor here, but interesting to see how it plays out. Hey guys, quick little announcement about the future of our show. Starting next week, As we inch closer to the season, we're going to be shifting to 5 days a week. So you'll hear us Monday through Friday. We're going to be talking about Tampa Bay Lightning preseason because that's right around the corner. We're going to talk training camp, maybe some of the biggest question marks the Lightning have going into the season, some of the position battles, some of the young guys who could come out of nowhere and earn a spot on this roster. We'll also have some Atlantic Division previews, Lightning team previews, NHL previews, all the previews your heart desires. And Greg will go through the entire NHL and ask whether the star players on each team can stay healthy for next year. That's all coming up on Locked On Lightning the next couple of weeks. Hockey is right around the corner, folks. It's September, which means we actually have hockey games being played this month. We're hyped for it. For now, though, that's going to do it for us on today's Locked On Lightning. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We will be back with an all-new episode later this week. We'll see you then.